Humans have a tendency to be very creative in both good and bad ways. This creativity, this imagination has led to the rise and fall of many ideologies and nations, often predicated on singular ideas. But what if a nation was ruled through something that was much more dark, something that lies within us as humans, deep in the recesses of our brains? While our systems of governance and societies are usually governed by religious or secular ideas of morals and the rule of law, what if society followed the will of something completely opposite, a perversion of our own world into something much more disturbing? Well, in the world of the New Order, Last Days of Europe, this is the reality all the time. Let me level with you. I was not interested in making any more TNO videos, period, due to the amount of work that is required to make them, and my own stupid policy to make each and every single one of my videos super complex with 3D animation, complex editing, you know the story, blah 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 blah. But after reading some of the comments on my Great Trial video, I found one path that really called to me because of just how batshit insane it is. Sure, the Holy Russian Empire is nuts, and the Black League is super cinematic and cool as a concept, but this path is just wacky, hilariously dark, and right up my alley. It's so absurd, but pretty interesting, really. If you know, you know. We're going to be covering the Brotherhood of Cain. If you don't know, which you probably do, the world of the New Order is very different due to World War II playing out in the Nazis' favor. Without getting into too much detail because I'd just be reiterating myself, the Nazis would succeed in their invasion of Russia and Europe, winning the war and forcing the Western world to tolerate and live with the regime. Germany, however, didn't fully conquer Russia, as it's far too large to realistically hold with any strength. Without the strong leadership of the Communist Party, Russia pretty much broke like glass, with factions forming across the land. You can be a wandering nomad, or one of the thousands that live in makeshift villages, or you could be part of the several warlord nations that, let's just say, commit unspeakable war crimes. That's where you, the player, comes in. Through your actions, you can take Russia in any direction you desire among the paths that are available to you. This path that we're talking about requires you to play through the Holy Russian Empire route. In Komi, the political center of this fractured Russia, one Sergei Taboritsky takes control and establishes his empire in the name of the Tsars. After conquesting and uniting all of Russia, an imperial cult is formed around Sergei, and those who don't follow his strict rule are subject to execution and brutal torture. In Omsk, however, something else has formed. Omsk is a small rogue state that the empire has to conquer, and through the use of stormtroopers and just sheer brutality, Omsk usually falls quite easily. To keep order in the nation, stormtroopers were stationed at military checkpoints and civilian areas to control the population. And if that sounds like a bad idea, well, that's because it was. Vanishings, burnings, and war crimes I can't even mention on YouTube, anything and everything was allowed, and the troopers took well advantage of the power that they were given under the Empire. We'll circle back to these stormtroopers later. First, we need to discuss our figurehead for this pathway, Anatoli Andreevich Motsny. Born on September 25th, 1922 in the Shkolov-Mogilev region of Byelorussia's Soviet Socialist Republic. In 1941, he was called to serve in the Red Army to defend Russia against German invasion. After the fall of the Soviet Union, Anatoly would make his way to Komi, where he laid low until he found his opportunity to climb. In Komi, if Sergei takes power, Anatoly finds himself joining the stormtroopers and quickly rising to the rank of commander. In the war against Germany, Anatoly was a decorated soldier, so it was quite easy for him to slip into the stormtroopers' top position. Although Anatoly was almost seen as a folk hero to those who still remembered the Soviet Empire, he too would be complicit and actively participate in the war crimes shared by his other stormtrooper comrades. Killing and pillaging in the name of the imperial cult was rampant. Anatoly at this time truly did believe in Taboritsky's regime and his holy mission. As a bit of a side note, the real Anatoly, you know, the one from actual history, was a pretty good choice to have as a leader in this future death cult. In real life, he was a decorated decorated soldier for the Red Army, who after the war's end was found guilty of killing his son in 1952, brutally murdering him and covering his body with cloth and hiding in a latrine for days to avoid capture. He would die in 1960 after being released early in 1958. Before his death, he would be disgraced and stripped of his achievements for, quote, committing acts incompatible with the status of an order bearer. Having this guy lead a death cult was more than an appropriate choice. Just as another sidebar, this is why I love Last Days of Europe so much. Just taking this one random guy out of history and making him the sort of big bad is just a genius way to just use kind of unknown historical figures and make them larger than life. It's just something really cool. Just wanted to say that. In the game, as you play, you are still following the Holy Russian Empire path, playing it till its end. That end being the ticking clock that starts as the empire crumbles due to Sergei Tabaritsky going mad. After the truth revealed itself to Sergei that the Tsars were dead and buried, he dies and the empire is plunged into apocalyptic chaos. As said in my previous video about the empire, check it out by the way if you want more info, the empire is fractured and things are left worse than before, with nation states that were once organized now lawless and rogue, with death and brutality pop-marking the land as we see it. Stormtroopers and loyalists that were stationed in different areas of the empire were mostly mauled to death by the mob. Some fled and some became options for leaders. In Omsk, however, where Anatoli was commanding, things were pretty different. You see, Anatoli positioned himself quite intelligently at the head of Omsk, commanding a fierce army of fellow stormtroopers who were more loyal to him than the imperial cult itself. In fact, after becoming the leader of Omsk, he would establish his own order, one predicated on the ideas of Satanism and the occult. After Tabaritsky's death, he learned that Sergei was actually Jewish, something that shook him to his entire core. The entire time, Anatoly was fighting for a regime that was predicated on the idea that the Tsars were blessed by God. Tabaritsky himself was the region ushering in this age of holiness and righteousness. To find out that he was Jewish the entire time makes him experience a crisis of faith. In this crisis, he begins to take hallucinogenic drugs for answers, and answers he receives. Essentially, Sergei really was the prophet of God and the holy man that the imperial cult claimed. But that wasn't the entire story. Due to Anatoly's anti-Semitism, he came to a disturbing epiphany. If God would ally himself with a Jew, the same people that killed his son and didn't heed the warnings of mercy, then the opposite must be true. That Satan is the true savior, and God was the real villain, intent on dooming mankind, not saving it. Adopting the moniker of Abdon, a term that in the Hebrew Bible means destruction or place of destruction, he founded the Brotherhood of Cain. Its namesake, an inversion of the story of Cain and Abel, seeing the killing of Abel as a necessary evil, something that was righteous, something that led to something better. Through the use of his loyal stormtroopers and his loyal cult, he converted Omsk into something that could only be called a living hell, and that was the full intention. The moniker of Cain resembles the belief that their god was false, and their new goal was now to establish the new kingdom of the Hellborn. To do this, they practice human sacrifices as a way to affront God and to satisfy the devil and Satan. The city of Omsk is known to have many strategic underground bunkers that serve as bases for ranking command and even civilians in times of trouble. But in this new kingdom, they serve as chambers of sacrifice. Civilians that were deemed Christian or Jewish were spirited away to these bunkers where sacrificial rituals were practiced. It was as gory and as brutal as you can imagine. Sacrificial killings to straight up disembowelment and torture. You might be thinking that this form of government isn't sustainable, like at all, and you would be completely correct. Even after unification, outside of Omsk, the kingdom is plagued with resistance and an ever-depleting population as predictably, many people are dying and even more are fleeing out of Russia. Every time the kingdom moves and expands, people disappear. This reunification, if you even want to call it that, isn't a standard form of governance or a society, or even something that can be described. It's a death cult where Anatoli, or now Abdon, rules from the shadows of Omsk, hiding in bunkers, hiding in plain sight, as nobody knows what he looks like. You see, Abdon is very distinct in his appearance in TNO and the way he lives. He never takes off his mask, fashioned from the skull of a ram to resemble the demonic figure of Baphomet. Even in the game, we never get to see his face, and his visage is nightmarish and larger than life. He looks like a demon that crawled out of hell, and he plays like one too. As you conquer more and more, the kingdom expands and it becomes even more lawless. It's a haven for degenerates and war criminals fleeing persecution, embracing the dark forces of the kingdom of hell. Most don't even care for the cult, nor practice Satanism. Those in high command use the cult as an excuse to commit acts of terror, and this bloodshed is rewarded and encouraged by the cult. Abdon doesn't need a formal system. He doesn't care for peace or even diplomacy. Labor is done by slaves, and when they serve their use, they are sacrificed. They are told lies of mercy and butchered in the name of Satan. Those who live in the kingdom are forced to obey and always hold the fear of abduction and persecution. Even the well-off citizens who manage to live and even thrive in this society are on eggshells. All Abdon wants to do is scourge the land of all religion. If God had betrayed Russia, then it will in turn worship the opposite. Satan is the only way to ascend, and purging the land with fire and blasphemy appeases this dark lord. And if that's what it takes, that is exactly what Abdon will do. There is no winning. There is no losing. Judgment is coming. And this time, it's not mercy, it's rapture. Ooh, that got a bit dark there. Oh boy. Well, that's really all there is. Despite how twisted this path is, just like Taberitsky, it's pretty underdeveloped. You see, this entire post-midnight event is mostly not canon and an add-on of an already existing mod. So the path doesn't really have anything beyond the lore and very basic gameplay. It is hard, and it's kind of glitchy. When I attempted it, I could only get about halfway before the game started shitting bricks, but hey, that doesn't stop it from being a super fun pathway that offers a pretty, I guess, crazy alternative to whatever other post-midnight event you can get. Anyway, I just want to say thanks for watching. More videos are going to be coming out eventually, but trust me, this channel isn't abandoned and I will keep uploading if it kills me. I will. It's just, you know me. Thanks for watching anyway, and look out for more. Peace. Bye-bye.